Hi, this is Brandon with Eschatology Matters, part of the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network, and I'm here with William Wolfe. William, for those that don't know maybe who you are or they haven't interacted with you much, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. That would be most people. But yeah, my name is William Wolfe. I'm the executive director and founder of the Center for Baptist Leadership. We're trying to make Baptists great again by revitalizing the Southern Baptist Convention and really helping to equip and activate the 13 million Southern Baptists in America to not just send missionaries and not just plant churches and do evangelism. Those are wonderful things. Let's keep doing them, but also to re-engage in the public square in this country.
Well, we're here at the Blue Collar Confessional Conference, Michael Foster's conference, and you just gave a speech on politics, and I'd like to dig into that a little bit. One thing that you said that really kind of piqued my interest was you brought up this thing called National Gnosticism.
Yeah.
Could you just kind of walk us into that a little bit?
Yeah, this was a term I came up with about 3 years ago when I gave a speech at the National Conservatism Conference about a Christian case for an America First government. And I was thinking, why is it that Christians, so many sort of general evangelical Christians, or in particular, so many of our leading evangelical Christian spokesmen, leading pastors or public figures, seem to act as if America doesn't matter. And what happens to our country doesn't matter. Christ's kingdom is not of this world, right? And I was thinking they don't seem to value the goodness of a nation or of a nation state. And there are these, there are major political movements and organizations out there, the UN, the WEF, the WHO, that are really these globalist enterprises trying to mash us all together, indistinguishable nations. And so I was like, well, what's at the root of this? And in many ways, I do think it's this sort of Gnostic idea that, what happens in this life, in the physical world, in the world right in front of us, as the subline of this conference is, doesn't matter so much, right? It's like, are you saved? You've punched your ticket to heaven, and now just retreat to a mountain and wait for the trumpet to sound. And so I'm saying that that's really a form of Gnosticism, which is an ancient Christian heresy that taught this unhelpful, inaccurate division between the spiritual and the physical world, saying the physical world was inherently corrupt. And what we want to do as Christians, and really this heresy was latched on to early Christianity, that sort of the secret gnosis, knowledge of Christianity helped bring us out of this physical and material world and sort of transcend to the spiritual plane. And so, of course, that's not the message of the gospel, but the message of the gospel comes from Christ, the Word incarnate, incarnate in this world. And so I want Christians to stop acting and talking as if what happens here and now doesn't matter just because we are one day going to go to heaven.
Yeah. If you think about it, it's kind of bizarre that we even have to have this kind of battle right now, or to try to reclaim just what we really is traditional Christianity and Christian thought, where this kind of radical pietism has separated us from just basic things like family worship, all the way up to engagement in politics and caring about what our nation is, our nation's identity. Can you maybe expound on some of the other points that you made in the talk?
Yeah, sure. So my 3 points for this talk, which I added on an extra one because I had some more time here, it was 1, reject national Gnosticism. Live and act as if your nation matters. Its borders matter, its people matters, its culture, history, tradition, heritage matters, and particularly in America, because I would argue it's fundamentally a Christian culture, heritage, history, tradition. The second point was, how do we counter that? And I was like, well, we need to embrace the Ordo Amoris. Now, I was talking about this in this talk many years ago. It made it into national news recently because J.D. Vance brought it up. And it's Catholics claim this teaching from Catholic social thought, but it's not just Catholics. You can first find it in the writings of Augustine, where he encourages Christians to order their loves rightly. And then Thomas Aquinas does pick up on it as well. And then, as I quoted today, C.S. Lewis and G.K. Chesterton and many other people engage with this. And so ordering our loves rightly means, first and foremost, we love the Lord our God with our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then the second greatest commandment, we love our neighbor as ourself. But then we do it in sort of just a common sense way in our everyday lives. Like, I love my wife more than your wife. I love my kids more than your kids. I should love my American citizen neighbors more than I love the general mass of humanity or any possible immigrant who could come here. And that's really where this idea, the rubber hits the road, is on the immigration debate currently. It's like, should we let in 50 million non-Americans to this country because, one time Jesus told a parable about a good Samaritan? Well, I would say no, that just defies common sense. And actually that's an inversion of the order of loves. And I'm suggesting that this right ordering of loves applies not only in our personal lives, but should apply to the priorities of our politics and our government at the local, state, and national level.
So why do you think that, because most people, it's just common sense, they would track with you on, well, I love my wife more than I love your wife. Same thing with your parents and your family. Why do you think that once the conversation comes to a nation?
Yeah.
Why is there that all of a sudden it's not only just it's not even just apathy, it's vitriol. It's they'll go on the attack, or there's a lot of confusion right now as to, like, is this even something we should do or can do, or is this godly to even pursue? So why do you think that is?
Yeah, I didn't bring this up in my talk, but that's a great question. And I think I have an answer. I think the answer is the scale. You can appreciate how you have to order your loves at the scale of a family. You can't just unlock your door at night and let anybody who wants to come in and raid your pantry, or your kids won't eat. You have finite resources in your bank account. But when we're talking about, say, the national government and immigration policy, it's this massive abstract scale. Don't we have, billions and trillions of dollars? Don't we have plenty of space we can pack these immigrants into? Aren't they just looking for a better life? And the reality is, even though it's operating at a much bigger scale, our government has finite resources. We're almost $40 trillion in debt as a national government. If you look at what's happened all across our country, whether it's jobs or the housing market or the education system, or government services, legal and illegal immigrants are seriously taxing those to such a degree that American citizens, who I am arguing that our government has a responsibility to put first in this right ordering loves, are hurting. So I think the scale is one of the reasons. Another reason, too, I think, is really the rise of suicidal empathy or toxic empathy. Or Joe Rigney has written about this as well, emotional sabotage, where we perform these acts of empathy really as sort of virtue signaling to make ourselves feel better. It's like, welcome the stranger, welcome the foreigner, clothe the needy, while at the same time, like, there are tens of thousands of homeless American veterans, right? And so again, but you feel better doing it for the Guatemalan immigrant than you do for the homeless American veteran down the street. And that's, I would say, a form of toxic empathy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So moving on from there, how did you develop your ideas in your speech?
Yeah, my last point was fight for your country. And I encourage people to fight for our country, not just as soldiers, but also as stewards. And there I went to Matthew 25 and the parable of the talents. And this story that Jesus teaches, there's these three people who have been entrusted with a varying degree of, talents, money, by their master as he goes on a trip. And the faithful stewards are the ones that invest it, use it, put it to work, and yield a return. And the unfaithful one is the one who buries it in the ground and does nothing with it. And that applies to a lot of different things in our life. It certainly applies to the gospel, right? We are called to, let our light shine before men and not hide it under a bushel. We sing songs about that. We teach kids songs about that. But it doesn't just apply to the gospel message. It applies to everything else that God has given us, our finances and our nation. And this incredible inheritance of freedom grounded in the Protestant Christian tradition that we've inherited as American citizens here in 2025. And so I was saying to the Christian audience, steward these political talents that God has given us, fight to pass them on to the next generation. Don't just stick your hands in your pockets while this country kind of goes to hell in a handbasket, which many people feel like it is. We're here in Batavia, Ohio. It's probably a pretty red area. It's like the Shire. I was thinking about this. I didn't work it into the talk, but you read Lord of the Rings, what drives Sam and Frodo to do what they do is they know that the orcs will one day come to the Shire. They can't just say that's a problem, for the people south of Mordor over there. If you don't go stop it, one day the Shire will be overrun. And so we need to do what we can in a right way, virtuously, as John Harris talked about, honoring the Lord and doing it to the glory of God and for the good of others. But I think we need to try to not just defend, but also reinvigorate sort of the Christian tradition in this country as good political stewards of what God has given us.
Yeah, I think that it was, you also had mentioned that, if you wanted proof that this can happen here, just look at England and Germany and Europe and places like that where everyone understands are totally out of control.
Yeah, I didn't get into this in my talk either, but really the theme here is, does the West have the will to live? Western civilization, which obviously we have elements of, Greek and Roman philosophy and the early beginnings of democracy and, Greek nation, city states. But really what fueled and expanded the rise of Western civilization was Christianity. And Western civilization has been amazing. It's been, all the advancements in modern medicine and everything, modern technology and all of this. It's been this combination of sort of the European nations, Germany, France, England, Canada, America, and really even Australia, New Zealand are kind of nestled in there, grandfathered in there. And when you look at these nations, these inheritors of Western civilization, they're committing national suicide, by fundamentally in two main ways. One, by importing absolutely untenable numbers of migrants, period, but also importing, an untenable number of migrants who will never assimilate to Western civilization, fundamentally third world and Muslim migrants. And then the second thing they've done is they've adopted sort of the radical revolution, the progressive revolution of the LGBT agenda, DEI, CRT, all these things that say people like you and me, Brandon, white men, are the bad guys here. And the truth is we're not the bad guys.
Well, I don't know how people could argue with you on what you're saying here, but I know that one of the criticisms is going to be, but you don't care about the other people, other nations. I mean, what's your response to that if someone were to bring that up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do care about the other nations. I just care about them less than I care about America. I care about evangelism, church planting, and global missions. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a missionary. I'm a Christian working this reform work in the Southern Baptist Convention and really working to revitalize Christianity in America and in the West. But I've been thinking about this a lot lately because Southern Baptists in particular are very mission-minded people. And I love that about them. That's why we were founded. So Southern Baptist churches could pool money together for the spread of the gospel around the globe. And I want us to keep doing that. I want the IMB to continue to send around 4,000 global missionaries and support them year over year. But global missions and what's powered global missions in the modern era is the fact that they've been sent from home bases that are stable. Imagine trying to build something like the International Missions Board in a country where you have to operate underground, right, or in a country where churches and Christian organizations are sort of taxed out of existence. It would be almost impossible. Of course, God can do anything. But if you say, I don't care about politics, I just care about missions and evangelism, what you're really saying is, I don't care about the foundation that makes our missions and evangelism powerful and prophetic and possible. You're saying possible, right? So it's like, so what I said in our talk, and I think this got the loudest reaction from the crowd, was if we turn America over to the third world or to Muslims, or we let radical leftists drive us underground, then we aren't going to be able to send thousands of missionaries abroad every year. We're not going to be able to plant new churches. Yes, we can still do evangelism. Yes, there's an underground church in China. But we should not willingly lend a hand to destroying the foundations that makes all of this possible, or we shouldn't just sit by and do nothing while those foundations are under attack. We should reshore the foundations, both for the good of this country and for the work that we do as a Southern Baptist Convention and many other mission organizations do, sending global missionaries abroad.
So then your solution to that would be to shore up home first.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like triage, like when you're bleeding out or you got to put the tourniquet on, right? Or it's like when you're on a plane. I mean, these principles are so common sense. You put your own mask on first before you help others. Well, I would say over the last, 20 to 30 years, America is a passenger on a plane going around helping everyone else put their mask on, and we're about to pass out. We might need to sit for a second, put our mask on, get some oxygen. We need to fix these systemic issues that are destroying the American political experiment, undermining the Constitution, eroding our First Amendment freedoms and rights. I mean, just today on the Center for Baptist Leadership podcast, we released an episode with Luke Ash. He's a bivocational Southern Baptist Convention pastor in Deep Red, Louisiana, who came and took a call to a very small church that couldn't afford to support him financially currently because of their size. So he took a job in the local library system in Deep Red, Louisiana. And then they also hired a transgender individual. And Luke made it known, not to that individual, but I think just to a coworker, that he wasn't going to use preferred transgender pronouns because he felt like by doing so, he'd be violating his conscience and telling a lie. And he got fired. So we need to stop things like that here in America. We need to stop the bleeding on mass migration. We need to deal with a growing Muslim population in our country that is not here to assimilate. But we can do all that and keep sending missionaries if Christians would just do a little more to get back into the public square, to do the bare minimum of making it out to vote, but also getting involved locally and at the state level, maybe running for school board, running for city council, contributing to a political campaign for somebody you know and trust, and really just quit with the Gnosticism and the pietistic escapism and say, thank you, God, for this country you've given me. And I'm here to help make it better for the next generation.
Yeah, amen. I mean, I think for me, I kind of circle back to where we talked about where you can scale back down again, just as an example. So, and I'm not thinking of anyone in particular, but I've heard of men who they'll pour themselves out in ministry, and while their family suffers,
exactly,
and they'll end up raising apostate children,
yes,
while they've went out and they've preached to thousands,
yes,
and they've neglected their wives,
yes,
and so I see kind of an analogy there with our country, and like you're saying, like what the husband was doing wasn't necessarily wrong, but in proportion to what his first responsibilities were, it threw everything out of whack.
That's right. And Brandon, that's a fantastic analogy. I wish I would have used it in my talk. But it's funny, over the last decade plus, all these good natural things in this life God has given us, marriage, family, children, politics. We've been told by the Young Restless Reform crowd, TGC, don't make an idol out of them. Don't make an idol out of marriage. Don't make an idol out of politics. Don't make an idol out of children. While at the same time, I would suggest they've done things like made an idol out of missions and made an idol out of evangelism and made an idol out of the neutral public square and the church's winsome prophetic witness that lands equally on the left and right, even as the left races off this insane cliff of, this transgender agenda and cultural Marxism and everything else. And so maybe they should have been focusing on these good things God has given us. And, it comes down to this combination of ordering and living rightly as embodied spiritual individuals, right? Body and soul. We have a soul, it's embodied. We're bound for heaven. Our soul will be internal. We live in the here and now in the physical world, and both of those things matter.
Which brings us right back to Gnosticism, which you were talking about at the beginning. So, let people know where they can keep up with you. We'll wrap this up. You're on X for sure.
For sure.
And is that just at William Wolfe?
So I'm on X at William_E_Wolfe. I don't really care if you follow me on X or not, but here's where I want you to go. I want you to go follow Baptist Leaders at Baptist Leaders on X. check out our website, centerforbaptistleadership.org. And if you do nothing else, subscribe to our YouTube channel podcast, which is, Center for Baptist Leadership on YouTube. You can also find us on Apple and Spotify. If you feel so inclined, leave a 5-star review. We've had some haters leave us some bad reviews just to undercut us on Apple Podcasts, but we'd love to reach more people on YouTube. We record a video podcast, and so you can catch it on your audio channels. But we do these great interviews, talk about
I've seen
important topics, and I think it's material that more people should watch. So help us do that.
All right, YouTube, go out there and subscribe. Thanks a lot, William.
Thank you, brother.
Seated here at my right